Well, hello and welcome to another episode of More Perfect Marketing. My name is David Baer. I'm already getting whoop whoops in the Zoom chat from or not to chat, the video from our guest Liz, who you'll find out about in just a moment. But before I tell you about her, I got to tell you about her website because I did a little bit of research in advance of our appointment to record this episode. And I went over to lizwilcox.com, and boy, was I greeted with excitement and energy. And that was just a visual display of the site and personality. And I think we're going to be talking a little bit about each of those things as it pertains to the topic we're covering today, which is email marketing. So why don't I reserve the rest of what I want to say now for our conversation and welcome Liz Wilcox.
Hey, David, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to help people have a more perfect email strategy.
Indeed. Okay. I love the site. I love the energy that you have, visual energy. You're greeted with a video on the site and all of that. And I said that a lot of that actually can get translated into email. And I hope that we'll dive a little bit into, sort of how that works. But before we get into that, why don't we talk a little bit about your background and what's brought you to become the go-to email marketing expert?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a different background than a lot of people in marketing. Usually you hear, oh, I was a service provider, I worked under so-and-so, and then I, flew from the nest, so to speak. I did it completely backwards. I actually started off as an RV travel blogger, and I started my RV travel site before I had even traveled 1 mile. So I'm one of those people that just looks at something and is like, yeah, I think I could do that. I'll give that a go. But really it was, we had moved into an RV and I was like, wow, people drive these things, we could get on the road. I was married at the time. My husband was in the military and he was thinking about getting out. And I said, you know what, everybody's saying you can start a blog. So I'm just going to start a blog. And that's what I did. And, I listened to podcasts like this, went to webinars, and every, quote unquote guru out there was just talking about how, oh, I wish I would have taken my email marketing more seriously. I wish I would have spent more time growing my list sooner. I would have, made my millions sooner. Email. And mama didn't raise no fool. I'm nothing if not an efficient chick. And so I said, well, I'm going to go all in on this email thing. Google's telling me you can get a $42 for every dollar you put in. And, I'm a hard worker. I'll figure it out. So I just went really hard from the beginning on my email list. Everything that I created was kind of the top of funnel to get people into my email list. Within 6 months, I had created my first digital product, and it made something like $7,000 in the first 90 days. It got picked up by an international sponsor. I hosted a digital summit, brought in partners for that. And kind of my claim to fame when I realized, wow, I really need to be teaching this stuff, was I decided I was going to create a digital course. So I emailed my list and said, the typical advice of, ask people if they want it first, right? So I said, hey guys, I'm thinking of creating this course on RV maintenance. Would you like it? And I had 141 people click the yes button. So I said, okay, well, if only 10%, 10 to 14 people said, heck yeah, Liz, to the purchase by the time I created the course, like that would be worth it to me. That would be good. So I created the course, spent the next something like 3 months creating it, pre-launching, telling people it was coming, talking about it nonstop. And I did a typical online Monday through Friday, cart open, cart close, and I have made 141 sales. So everyone that said that they would be interested in it purchased. And if you know anything about about marketing at all, that's really kind of unheard of. So word got around and people were like, what are you doing? You're talking about RVs. You need to be talking about email. And I said, oh, well, yeah, I guess you're right. And once I started noticing people weren't they were seeing results, but average results were like 1 to 3%. I was like, oh my gosh, my stomach is a lot hungrier than 1 to 3%. I need to teach you guys how to do this. So I actually sold that blog, went all in on email marketing, and now I'm talking to you, David.
Wow. And that's a big leap from like I went into email marketing and now I'm talking to you, but I'm thrilled to have you here. By the way, you may notice behind me, I have a couple of books I've written on the subject of email. I used to be a daily emailer. This has been years since I've done that, but you're so correct when it comes to the power of email. And I'm thinking back, to the days that I started to get active in marketing online was in the mid 1990s, a decade which will probably come back in this episode a little bit later, when I was working in the theater and classical music business, and we were building an email list and marketing to people who were actually like opening up the emails, which is not a very common thing these days, right? So I've been around email, but I haven't really focused on it solely, and so I'm eager to hear about some of the insights that you share. As I've been going through your site, you have a whole bunch of things that you teach, and one of the areas that I think a lot of people who I've worked with tend to struggle is what we call short-term nurture in my world, right? There's sort of, you get somebody onto the list and you want to move them into a new relationship and get them someplace. And then we also have long-term nurture, which are all the people who don't necessarily take immediate action, like your 141 people who signed up for your course, mazel tov for that. And so that's a real challenge that I think a lot of people are dealing with. Like, okay, I got them on the list. Now what do I do? What do I say? How do I get them moving forward? How do I get them opening the emails and things like that? And you have developed a framework around this that I wonder if you can sort of guide us through that process.
Sure. So I find that most people don't do email because it seems complicated. I mean, go to your phone right now. How many unread emails do you have? Probably a lot. So when you think about, oh, well, I have to email people, I'm just going to be one of those thousands of unread emails, right? I went and got my oil changed today and they were like, can we get your email? I said, absolutely not. Just print the receipt. Like, I'm never going to open this email. But how do we change that framework, especially if we're a service provider or agency owner where we're not, this TikTok superstar where everyone wants to know about our private life. But I find that, especially coming from that content creator background into the service provider instead of the other way around, I found that a lot of those strategies, a lot of, David talks about personality and things like that, personal brands are really good at, can be brought into, the professional world. Like, yes, people want professionals, but we're living in this world right now, in this culture, in this market, where they also demand to know that you're a real person, right? And so that's the edge that you can give your business, is just being a real person. And so what David was talking about is the email staircase. That's the framework I developed. And I want to mention that I developed this in my RV with my daughter in the background, like, with really crappy internet. And, I used to say like, oh, I was just a girl with a Mountain Dew and a dream. So these strategies I'm going to talk about, they're quick, they're simple, and, they're just step by step, brick by brick, are going to build up, that short term and that long term. So the email staircase is really, really simple. So first, you've got a follower, right? Somebody finds you through advertising on social media, maybe locally. You get them on your email list somehow, right? You're doing that. And so once they're on your email list, think of it like trying to become friends with them. So first you've got a follower and then a friend. And I'm not talking about, your best friend you share all your dirty laundry with, something wild happens, you give them a call. Oh my gosh, you would not believe the day I'm having. Not that type of friend, but a friend that you have a very mutual interest with. So, if you I use the analogy of like, or the story of, you bump carts with somebody that you went to high school with, and, you're talking about your kids, you're talking about, what's going on, you're home for Thanksgiving. And let's use the lawyer analogy again. Like, you're a lawyer, this person mentions they got into an accident. Oh, well, I know exactly what you need to do. Like, give me your phone number. I'm going to call you later. That type of friend where you have that mutual interest, some kind of symbiotic relationship that you can nurture with the emails. And so then once you have a list full of friends, you can put out your offers, put up your services, periodically, and just say, hey, are you ready for this? I'm proving my value over here in the friendship, and we can talk about how to do that. But then, when you go to launch something like I did, or, you say, hey, I've got 3 spots here, or, I'm taking new clients, because you've been nurturing them, like David said, they'll say yes or no. People don't buy when you sell something, they buy when they're ready. So the emails are just keeping that relationship open, so that, when you say, hey, I've got this, you're the first guy they think of, right?
Okay, so a bunch of questions here. The first thing that you talked about was the speed with which you develop it, right? There's not a lot to necessarily think about. And so I'm assuming that the framework that you have, there are purposes for each communication, for example, when somebody's getting it. Can you sort of talk about that concept? How do you approach well, I guess there's two questions that I'm asking at once. One is, how do you approach speed of creation? Because that's something I see all over your site as well, right? Hey, don't worry, this doesn't take long. And then the other thing is, there's obviously things that need to get introduced in a certain order or at a certain, time in the relationship.
Yeah. So I recommend 4 emails in this onboarding sequence. So once someone gets on your list, just 4 emails over 4 days. And anything that I say, anything that you find online, like, filter this through your capacity, your business, your personality, right? And so I have some people that take this and they say, oh, I'm going to do this in 2 days. That makes sense for my business, or I'm going to stretch this out. But I tend to go 4 emails, 4 days. It's semi-aggressive, but that might be why I'm divorced. But it works. I've built 3 businesses like this. I've helped hundreds of clients, and my membership as of today is just shy of 1,500 people.
And by the way, Liz, you're saying that sounds somewhat aggressive, and I would, in with certain types of clients, say it's not enough. So it's all relative.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So filter this through your business and what you've already been doing and what's been working and what hasn't. So basically, you just want to lead with personality, like David said, a vision for your clients, and some values, right? We live in a market. It demands we know your values, right? We need to know there's people behind this business, right? There's a reason why Nike has social justice ads or is posting on Instagram about International Women's Day. And this is not to say spew your politics everywhere, but there are certain values that you hold dear and that you represent in your business. So leading with the personality piece, just if you go to my website, David already mentioned it, like, I'm very much like a 90s girl. I'm a millennial. And so, I mentioned NSYNC, and, right now I'm wearing like a headband. It's just, I have rainbow glasses. It's just a little bits of my personality. Of course, this is not at the core who I am, but it's something very simple that I can put out in my emails where I can quickly connect with people. And then the vision, which is, where do you want your clients, your students, your customers to go? So I like to think of it as, if you don't have this nailed down yet, think of it as someone is walking across the stage at your university. If you're walking across the stage at Liz Wilcox University, like, dang it, you're making money with email marketing. That's your degree, right? And so that's the vision that I hold for you. So in that first email, where that onboarding email, that welcome, if you've got some sort of freebie, or if you collect emails locally or something like that, just deliver that in that first email, and then just share a little bit, one piece of personality, and your vision. They have to know immediately where they are going with you. You are not the only, SEO agency out there. You're not the only financial professional. You're not the only lawyer. I'm not the only email marketer, right? So we have to tell them upfront where we want them to go, where we're going to go together. So you can do this in one sentence. For me, it's, hey, here's my freebie, whatever. Oh, by the way, I'm Liz Wilcox. If you only know one thing about me, it's that as much as I love the 90s, that's that personality piece, I love the idea of you making money with email even more. That's the vision. Suddenly, day one, very first introduction with me, we're shaking hands, so to speak, in the inbox. You've got a little bit of Liz, and then you know exactly where you're going with me, right? I'm basically promising you, like, hey, this is the road that we're on. If you don't like it, like, get off the bus, right? If you're on the wrong bus, no problem. We just met, here's the unsubscribe button or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So think about what if I'm at the end of my journey with my client, what's that vision I'm holding for them? And put that in the first email. Does that make sense?
Yes. And it's so very simple. I mean, there's probably in that very first email that you've described, that introduction was so concise, gave so much information, and you probably have your opinion on email length appropriateness and all of that sort of thing, but the likelihood is that you don't have to say very much more in that first email or the next email or the next email, and so it then makes sense why it can be efficient in building them all.
Yeah, correct. I always recommend in these first few emails, keeping it short. We're just opening up the relationship, right? You wouldn't meet someone at a conference and immediately go into your life story and why you do what you do. You shake hands. Oh yeah, I'm Liz, email marketing. Oh yeah, I love the 90s, whatever. Maybe we sit down at the table, we introduce, a couple more things, and then, the friendship goes from there, right? So with the second email, just send out some of your best content, right? If you do content creation on a blog or on social media, you can send it there. For me personally, I like to do a lot of podcast interviews like this. I want people to know I'm good on video, things like that. I just send a video out, and this might be the best advice for everyone. You can send a video or an audio or even a written paragraph of, hey, Liz Wilcox here, just a quick reintroduction, and then my number one tip for people in regards to email. So in regards to whatever it is you do, if you know, kind of like I said, if you know nothing else about me, let it be this. This second email is like, if you know nothing else about X, about my topic, you have to know this thing, right? So it establishes you right off the bat as an expert, someone who really knows what they're talking about, and you want to provide like the number one most valuable tip right up front.
So you have on your site, and you mentioned in the first email, I delivered the freebie, right? And and I think maybe we should talk about that and how it and what the relationship is to what they have joined your list to receive, and what it is that you're talking about in the subsequent emails, because obviously you want to guide them from the beginning of that relationship of saying, yes, I want this, to something else I'm imagining. And so how do you do that?
Yeah. So for me personally, my freebie, of course, is this welcome sequence that we're talking about. Surprise. And so it's like, hey, I've already written this for you. So in that second, and in that first email, I say, hey, this is what's included, click here. You've been waiting long enough, to get your email act together. And then the second email, I just give, I talk more about this email staircase where it's like, hey, you've really got to set that firm foundation. You don't build a wall, you lay it brick by brick. Like, let's get those first few bricks laid. Otherwise, it's all going to come tumbling down. So think about what your freebie is. And to David's point, how can you create some sort of content, some sort of like value piece there that helps them understand more why they need the freebie that you gave them. And so it makes them take action on it more.
Got it. Okay. So you've talked about the first two emails. Do you want to outline the remaining two, or should we move on to something else? Okay.
Yeah, I'll just go real quick because the third one is the most important. This is the newsletter expectations. You've got to set expectations the same way David introduced the podcast. He introduced me. When you do a training or when you're on a call with your clients, you say, hey, this is what's about to go down. That's this email. You say, hey, you're now part of my email list. These are a few things that are going to happen. And you talk about how, I'm going to email every Tuesday or whatever your frequency is. Then this is the ding, ding, ding. If you're driving or if you're washing dishes, like pull over, write this down, put a note in the back of your head, like don't forget this moment. You're going to say, I'm going to offer you free and paid services, free and paid products, free and paid resources, whatever word you want to use. It just flips the switch from, oh, hey, especially if you're using freebies. Hey, I just got this freebie from David. Great, whatever, right? Maybe I clicked on it, maybe I didn't. To, oh, wow, David really knows some strategical marketing things. He's using this as a marketing channel. So it just flips the switch in the back of the head, like, oh, Liz is a business, right? And this is especially important when you are a service provider and you want to make sure upfront, like this friendship is built on the right foundation that, hey, sometimes I'm going to offer you paid stuff, right? So that way, when you offer paid things, not only are they like familiar that that's going to happen, you're actually fulfilling a promise. So it makes them trust you more. Oh, David said he was going to offer paid products. Here they are. Let me check them out. Right? Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. And I mean, whether it's I offer free and paid, finding the way for somebody to say that that's appropriate in their business. Like, I hope this information that, we shared so far, by the way, there's other goodies that I'll be sharing. And if, our services, hiring us, et cetera, just other language to talk about the fact that it's an actual real business that exchanges, services for money.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that any sort of variation on that theme is okay.
Yeah, it just has, you have to be pretty direct about it, right? I'm going to offer you services. And then to David's point, you can bullet list them. You can add a separate paragraph about, what you offer. For me, I just have a few sub bullets like, like my tried and true, blah, blah, like my membership, blah, blah, and it's, now I offer links to these different sales pages, to these different offers in that email. I don't expect anyone to purchase in that email. We're just opening the friendship, right? But I do expect people to click, which, side note, is really good, for deliverability. I do expect people to click. I expect them to become familiar with my brand, with my offerings, so that, as I continuously use a newsletter, a follow-up nurture sequence every single week, they are already mostly familiar, and then they're just going to buy when, oh yeah, Liz has this membership, let me, I've got a few extra dollars this month, let me go check that out. I've been looking at that, right? Or, oh man, David's been emailing me a while, I finally, had that awesome, 6-figure year or 5-figure month, I'm going to go check out David, right? Because he's been emailing us, he's top of mind, we're aware of his offers, we're going to go to him first.
Yeah, I love that, the importance of the repetition, staying in front of them, et cetera. And obviously a name showing up in the inbox is really, really important that way. Which brings me to this next question. I know we haven't talked about email 4 yet, but I said name showing up in the inbox. Do you have an opinion on the sender name?
Oh yeah, this is a fun question. I think it needs to it can come from your company, but it needs to have a personal name. Like I mentioned earlier, like we're just living in this world where, like, yes, of course, the customer wants professionalism, but they want to know that there are people behind the brand. So if you are, that lawyer or some other, I'm a professional type of agency, if you can have it where it would say, like Liz, and then some, what do they call that line? Gosh, now I'm blanking, a line, a spacer, it looks like the letter I, and then the name of your company, right? Yep. What am I, what I'm talking about? I can't think of that name. Y'all, we are recording
pipe.
This
it's a pipe is what it's called.
A pipe. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to remember that forever. pause this so I can write that down.
It's above the
Yes.
return key on the keyboard.
Yes. Oh, yes. 100%. Dang, I'm looking at it now. Now it's going to stare at me for the next 5 days. But anyway, yeah, you can put, Liz Pipe email marketing, right? I would put something like email marketing lady. You might have like your SEO agency name, you're a law firm, something like that. But I do recommend that name so people know it's not just, even if they know it's an automated email, they know a person wrote it. They know it's not just this, template that has been used for 10 years. It's basically like gathering digital dust, right? They want to know that this is from a person. I saw one that I really like. That's kind of fun. She writes, "Hey, it's Sage," and then the pipe and then her agency name. And that's just a bit of her showing her personality. That might not be yours, but I really liked that one. For me personally, because I teach a lot about, inserting personality, and if you go to my website, you'll get it. I literally just have Liz Wilcox, but I always sign Liz Wilcox because Liz is the most popular name there ever was. Second only to David.
Yes, apparently so.
So I always make sure I have my last name. And then in the sign off, nowadays I have a personalized, it's my logo. I put my logo at the bottom of my email to differentiate myself as well. But I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. And actually when you said, hey, I have one person who's a copywriter who sends me something, and she also, all of her emails come from, hey, it's Shanti, I think is her name. So yes, I have seen that
Shanti Zach, I think.
Yes. Okay. Well,
yeah. Shout out to her.
So, all right, there's a ton more that we could cover, and I think we're just gonna have to have you come back and talk more about things like,
oh, yay.
But I do want to mention, because you mentioned something quick before we hit record about open rates, and this is another sort of big thing that I think a lot of Main Street businesses don't really think about the metrics aspect of what happens with their emails after the send button is hit, right? They might be aware of how many people received it, how many people opened it, maybe how many people clicked on something, maybe how many sales were made as a result, but not too many businesses actually think through even that important stuff. Can you talk a little bit about metrics and what is important, and perhaps more importantly, what isn't?
Yeah, David, I love this topic. And I love that the question before this was about like from sender, because I find if you do it right, all the things people mostly worry about, subject lines, like words that might hit spam, right? Like things like that. If you can do it properly, if you can build that foundation David and I were talking about earlier, it really helps your deliverability, and people will start looking for your, hey, it's Shanti, instead of looking at the subject line, right? Most people tell me nowadays, oh, when I see Liz Wilcox's name, like I just open it. You have no subject line. And the real people that are really interested, my customers, and my list is now 40% customers, they're just looking for the Liz Wilcox, right? And even if I end up in spam, they are emailing me, Liz, you went in the spam. What's going on? I marked it not spam for you. So with email open rates, what you really have to work on is getting people to, well, every email has 3 jobs. Number 1, get it seen, right? Get it out of, and that basically means try not to get it into spam, right? Number 2, get it opened. And number 3, get the person to take action, whether that's clicking on something, hitting reply, just reading the whole dang thing through before deleting, any kind of action, right? And so when you do these 3 things, it builds up your deliverability. Think of it like a credit score. I say that, I can't understand all the spiders and the Google crawling, but I call it the internet gods. So the more you can please the internet gods, the more you can build up that credit score, the more you're going to land in the inbox and have it, have every email fulfill those 3 jobs. So how you do that is just in this welcome sequence we were talking about, getting people to reply is, it's like the 5-star luxury resort of getting your credit score up. If someone, if David replies to Liz Wilcox, that, the internet gods take note of that. Okay, he not only did he open that, he replied. We're going to put Liz into David's inbox every single time. Now, when Michelle comes along and, oh, well, we know David really cares about Liz's email. So Michelle is probably going to care as well. So we're going to put her into the inbox for Michelle, and so on and so on and so on. So if you can get people to reply, if you can get people to click, those are really, really foundational practices to build that email list. Make sure you're always, as much as possible, because sometimes things go haywire, getting into the inbox, getting your emails read and building it up. So in order to get people to reply, just ask very simple questions, yes or no questions. Don't ask even, on a scale of 1 to 5, that's too complicated. If you're a lawyer, in that first email, PS, have you ever hired a lawyer? Hit reply, yes or no. Seriously, I really want to know. And having your secretary or yourself, whoever is monitoring those emails, actually reply back, opening up those conversations, boom, suddenly you're on a consult call, right? You're opening up that conversation. And then, so-and-so comes along on the list. Oh, well, dang, these people over here were having a conversation. I'm going to put them in the inbox as well. And so it's worth your while. And so tracking people that are clicking, tracking replies, of course, that's more manual than just looking at a dashboard and saying, oh, this is my open rate. But it is very much worthwhile if your open rate is low or you never get people to click, you're not seeing any results with email. Again, going back to that first brick, trying to get people to reply or click is really going to behoove you.
There's well, I love that example with the lawyer, by the way, because the one that I've gotten so frequently has been something like hit reply if that you received this. Like, we've been having difficulty with delivering our emails. Just wanted to make sure you received it. Hit reply and let me know that you got it. Right. That's, or a question like, what's your biggest challenge with, which based on what your advice was, forces people to think too much and they'll likely not answer.
Yeah, ain't nobody answering that question. The only people answering that question are, and this is no shade, women in their 40s and 50s who, they're on a commercial break from their soap opera or something, and they just want to talk to somebody. And it could be men too, but chances are, people aren't going to open up. They're not going to be vulnerable until they consider you a friend, until you've built that know, like, trust factor. And I would love to come back on the show and talk about that deliverability and what you just said. Because there's a lot of things going on with the Apple iOS updates where open rates are not as accurate. And I've been doing so much research. I'm hosting a live training on this soon. But it's like a yes or no thing. But I've lost my train of thought. I'd love to come back on with more stats. I was in one mode. Now I'm like, ooh, let's talk. That would open up a can of worms. We'd be here for another hour.
Well, knowing email marketing and that there's so many different topics, which as when somebody heads over to your website and sees the different things that you have to offer, you really attack the subject of email marketing from so many different angles. And each one of them are just like fascinating, from your monthly membership to the speed writing and the 20-minute newsletter thing, to your Open Sesame product, which is about getting people actually engaging with the emails, and a whole bunch of other things. I want to highly recommend people check out what you have to offer, because I imagine that just looking at this page of your products is going to open people's minds up to all the things that they're not thinking about when it comes to email. Listen, we have far exceeded the time that I have allotted for us to have this conversation. I don't want to take up any more of your time or our listeners' time, but I did want to circle back on one really important point. When I got the request to have this chat together and record it, one of the fascinating facts that you shared, and you shared it a couple of times here on the podcast, was you are a walking 90s pop culture encyclopedia. And so I think it's only fair that before we wrap up, I put that to the test.
Oh no, you can't see me, but I'm about to break out in hives. Let's do it. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
I think these should be reasonably
so
easy.
fun.
I found 3 questions that I wanted to ask. And so let's see how well you do.
All right. I'm
All right.
ready, David. Let's go.
So what band is headlining the 2022 tour, which is currently featuring the backup or featured acts Salt and Peppa, Rick Astley, and Vogue? Who's the headliner?
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a great concert. Is it New Kids on the Block?
It is New Kids on the Block.
Yes, I think I've heard of this.
Okay.
Through the Facebook grapevine.
Awesome. Okay, this one should be an easy one. What dance craze is Los Del Mar famous for? Or responsible for, I might want to say.
What dance craze? What
Yes.
did you say his first name was?
Los Del Mar, the name of the group.
Oh, Macarena.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
2 for
okay.
2.
I was like, who is Omar? I was like, I don't know. Okay.
All right.
Like,
and the last
MC
one, and
Hammer's
I think
real name.
and I think you're going to get this because we talked a little bit about it before we hit record. Who played the song Heartbreak Hotel on the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show?
Oh my gosh. I'm so embarrassed. I'm picturing him. I don't know.
He's a former president of the United States.
Oh, Bill Clinton. I
There you
knew
go.
it. I was like, oh my gosh, I know this. He was wearing sunglasses, wasn't he?
I think so. Yep. Yep. All right. Well, three for 3 with a
this
little
is so
assist
awesome.
there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the I was like, dang it. Oh my gosh, how funny. Yeah, so thank you.
Indeed.
This was so fun.
Sure. Well, listen, if folks want to continue the fun, I want to highly recommend that they visit your website, take advantage of the swipes that you offer on the site that you mentioned earlier. This is what you get when you join my email list, is what you said. And so how and where do they do that?
Yeah, so of course I want you on my email list. I'm an email marketer. All these things I'm talking about, personality, vision, values, following up, like how the heck do you do that? You can just get on my list and, take the strategy. Like David said, you can go to my products page and start getting inspiration already. It's very meta. So you can go to lizwilcox.com. In the top right-hand corner, there's a hot pink button. You can't miss it. It says free email swipes. You're going to get those 4 emails that we were talking about, and you'll learn what the 4th one is. You'll get them already written for you so you can take and make them your own. You'll also get 3 newsletter examples from different business perspectives so you can see what follow-up really looks like. And then for our folks that writing from scratch just totally sucks and you have no idea what to write your audience, I give you 52 subject lines on top of all of that completely for free. You can go to lizwilcox.com, that hot pink button, you can't miss it, and you get all of that stuff. I can't wait to see what you do with email.
That's awesome. And so nicely done, not telling them what's in the 4th email so that they have to go get it. Also, when Liz comes back to the show, you will find out what an open loop is. All right, Liz Wilcox, thank you so much. That was an inside joke for the 2 of us and anybody listening who understands what I was referring to.
Who knows what open loops are?
Liz, thank you so much for hanging out with me. It's been a really fun conversation, and I look forward to having you back again.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for listening.
Folks, this has been More Perfect Marketing. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you think you know somebody who could benefit from listening, please pass along this episode to them as well. Take care.